When are your customers losing interest? Understanding how customers are interacting and engaging with your website will give you an abundance of information that you can then leverage, hopefully give them the best experience possible.
Welcome back to SubSummit Studios. Super excited today. I've got Josh with us from UpSellit. Josh, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, really appreciate the time, Chris.
Super excited to talk a little bit about upselling and buyer incentives and really get into some of the things that you guys know really well. If you could, though, really quickly, just tell us about yourself, tell us your position at UpSellit, and then a little bit more about the software.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Josh Modell. I'm with UpSellit, and UpSellit has been around now for going on 15 years. And we work with, merchants, retailers of all shapes and sizes, essentially on conversion rate optimization technologies. We're a fully managed, custom built in-house solution, that really works very closely with our partners to, really understand opportunities of growth, understand, where in their buying funnel there might be opportunities to not only, drive customer acquisition, to help, drive on-site engagement, to help, with upsells, to help understand, what we can do to move people down the purchase funnel, what we can do to help drive retention, and most importantly, create a hyper-personalized on-site experience, to really, leave those customers, post-transaction with, a good kind of, taste in their mouth. We're big on, building brand loyalty and doing everything we can to most importantly drive incremental value and incremental revenue for our partners.
And I think with the subscription space, that can be super important, right? So, you have a subscriber, they may sign up for your product, and being able to upsell them on other products is going to increase the lifetime value of the customer, which is such a huge data point because that helps establish what your customer acquisition costs can go up to and how you can spend your money. So tell me a little bit about the impact of upsells, where you've seen it work really well, maybe some brands you've seen it work well on. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Especially in the subscription space, it's, obviously in the world of e-commerce, it's a newer space. And so we're still learning. But, at this point, as a company, we really focus a lot of our time and energy into, understanding the subscription space, working with, dozens of brands in really all verticals. And when we talk about upsells, it really kind of comes down to one common denominator. And that's hyper-personalization of the on-site experience. How are we engaging with our customers when they're coming in, whether it's an ad hoc, one-off, purchase where they're not actually going into subscription, or they're coming in for, 1 month subscription, and we're looking to, increase that to a 6-month or a 12-month subscription, or we're trying to add on to that. And what we found is that by personalizing not only the on-site experience, so what that specific funnel looks like for that specific customer, but also the post-transactional experience. How are we communicating with our customers, and what intervals are we communicating with our customers? What's the message behind that? How is that specific message specifically correlating with that customer and not just taking this one size fits all approach? That's really where the money is. And that's really how we're keeping them engaged with our brand. That's how we're going to ensure that they are going to not only continue to purchase from us, but share the value and share with their friends. Obviously, if we can, really create a very loyal customer who is engaged and invests in our brand, that organic word of mouth spread goes so far. And so those are the things that we love to kind of think about. We work a lot on, different types of campaigns with that, but just in the sub world in general, that's really where we find the most value, which is that hyper personalization, really helping to create that, hyper personalized experience.
Upsells can come in a couple different fashions, right? So it could be through checkout, right? Before they check out, hitting them with an upsell for a product. It could be an email before their next shipment. You mentioned personalization. So are you looking at data and saying if person A is subscribed to product B, they're likely to buy product D? Is that something you're looking at to try to upsell them?
As a company that is analyzing, thousands and thousands, if not millions of different data points on brands that we're working with. When we see somebody coming in, for example, with a partner that we're working with, and we see that they're purchasing, box B, we're also analyzing, well, what did that specific experience for that customer look like prior to purchasing box B? Was there any engagement with box A? Was there any engagement with box C? And you know, us particularly, we get very granular with what we're doing, but just in general, I think it's important for brands, and especially in the subscription world, to understand what that specific user journey looked like, to understand how long they were spending on specific pages, to understand, you know, do they put, you know, item A in cart and then decide to take it out and then move to item B?
Yeah.
And so being able aggregate all of this data together will then allow us to post transaction ensure that we are, you know, hitting them with those very specific and personalized you know, messages, you know, whether it's, you know, upselling them into a different box, whether it's trying to get them to upgrade into a larger subscription.
The brands really need to be thinking about upsell at some point, right? Whether again it's at the email, whether it's at checkout. I've seen, and even with like our gentleman's box team, you know, we've got this mystery box that we upsell at checkout, and we're seeing like over a 40% take rate. Prior to that, we were offering 3 products. It was like a higher price item, a middle price item, and a small price item through the checkout flow. And we're seeing which one was used more, right? And then or purchased more, or added on more. And that helped us make other decisions on what we should put in future upsells. And what was interesting is when we eliminated 3 options and made it 1, we saw a higher take rate. Have you seen that? Have you seen anybody else that had success with that or seeing anything similar?
Yeah, you know, one of the things that I think that we've learned in the subscription space is, you know, part of it just depends on what this specific subscription box is. Understanding first and foremost your audience, you know, who traditionally is purchasing your subscriptions, is the most important thing to understand, and then we can kind of work on, you know, what that strategy might look like. But with that being said, you know, A/B testing rules all. You know, like you mentioned, you know, our ability to, or just in general, you know, your ability to, you know, maybe split test. All right, let me, you know, upon checkout or, you know, post transaction or prior to checkout, you know, split test, you know, just a, you know, a single upsell or an ad hoc upsell, you know, as opposed to, you know, 3 different options, is a great way for, you know, subscription services to gain an understanding of, you know, how is their audience engaging with their product line, you know, what's resonating with them, and what does the data ultimately show?
I think another question that comes across the minds of some brands is this email prior to shipment, right? So let's say the customer's package is shipping on May 20th. We send an email out 6 days prior that says, add this scarf or pick what color scarf you want to go in this next box. There's that fear of like, oh, it's a reminder to cancel, right? But you don't want to be afraid to communicate with your customer. What have you seen in regards to that? What have you seen with brands? You know, what's your overall take on sort of that, like, I don't want to email them before shipment because it's a reminder to cancel.
Yeah, there's that fine line between, right? They haven't, you know, they haven't experienced the box yet first. You know, do I really want to kind of push that fine line? And you know, I'm going to go back to leverage the data that you already have. You know, what have you traditionally seen customers that have, you know, that are repeat purchasers? Listen to your audience, because that's going to give you at least a baseline of how to interact with, you know, once we start to talk about, you know, iterations and how to, you know, effectively communicate with our customers post transaction, but before that actual first box gets to them, you know, hopefully effectively. I think that that's something that all subscription box services should explore, is social proofing the buying process. You know, showcasing what other people like. You know, get granular with it. You know, take, for example, their specific demographic, you know, whatever information you might have on them, you know, push that into your specific messaging, whether it's, you know, a modal that comes up, you know, after the transaction's complete, or whether it's, you know, via an email drip, you know, before that specific box goes out. But I definitely think that there is a lot of value, especially if we have the data that shows us that, you know, customer A, you know, traditionally after their first subscription is buying, you know, product B or product C, you know, being able to kind of put that in there, and then, you know, make sure that you're mentioning that in your messaging. And I think that you'll, you know, hopefully see some really strong results.
The subscription industry is exploding.
Are there businesses out there that should be thinking about subscription?
All of them.
This virtual event is a celebration of those amazing things that these companies are doing. From acquisition to retention,
Over 100 different suppliers.
you're going to get tips and tricks you won't find anywhere else.
Network, share ideas, and build your business.
You need to be at Subscription Innovations.
It's absolutely free to attend. Are there specific times, that work better to offer shopper incentives? Again, whether that's a specific time to send an email, whether that's a certain time to send a pop-up. What have you seen work really well traditionally?
Incentives are tricky, right? Because we're very sensitive to our bottom line. We don't want to cut into it if we don't have to. And so one of the things that we really look at, and really every company should look at, is when are your customers, when are your visitors losing interest?
Do you recommend using like a hot jar or something like that to sort of identify that?
Yeah, I think heat maps are great. I think heat maps are going to give you the ability to understand exactly, how your customers are interacting with your site. And then, of course, what we do with that information is just as important. But understanding how customers are interacting and engaging with your website will give you an abundance of information that you can then leverage. And at the end of the day, promotions are always going to win out because they feel like they're getting better value. But again, the ability for us to, number one, have test these specific strategies, whether it's an A/B test, whether we're split testing it 3 different ways. It really starts by understanding where your customers dropping off. If you're seeing a 60, 70, 80% drop off rate in cart, then it might make sense to explore looking into offering the small discount. And I say this especially with that first subscription. Especially if it's a subscription box, if you're in a specific space where it's kind of one of those kind of mix and matches, they might not know exactly what they're getting. They might, heard, great things, word on the streets, but they're still a little bit on edge. We can put, or you can put rules in place stating that, if they come once, hit them on the second time to site. And so there's different ways that we can, really start to understand our audience, how they're, navigating, engaging our site, where that drop off is happening. And if we're starting to notice trends that we're just, our abandon is way too high on exit or in cart, that might be a really good time to offer them, some type of promotion.
The data is going to tell us a lot. If people are dropping off at checkout and it's at the cart, one, it could be not the right incentive, but 2, it could also just be a checkout problem, right? So like, for example, I don't think you should be asking a customer for shipping and a billing address. It's ask for shipping, have the checkout, just ask for the zip code or something of that nature, right? Or, ask for shipping and have the checkbox, is billing address the same, right? And there's brands that are still doing that, right? And like the checkout flow should be much easier. Other side of it too is if the incentive is too high, you're getting a lower quality customer, right? The higher discounts lead to lower LTVs because the customer is usually a lower quality customer. They don't have as much direct discretionary income. They're a deal finder and they're not going to stay on as long. Is that what you see as well too?
You make a great point. There's so many brands out there that overly complicate the checkout process. And there's still this idea that we need so much information on our customers. They need to create an account. They need to fill out, 3 different forms before they can even get the card. And what we see across the industry, especially in the subscription space, but really across the board, is that's going to lead to an enormous drop off. And we see this especially true with mobile. Mobile as it is already a little bit more difficult, to complete that checkout. And, one of the things that we love, working with partners internally, but just in general is, I would advise all brands to have a really strong, mobile optimization, program in place. Whether that is.
It should be mobile first, right? If you're building a site, like you should be building mobile first.
100%. And, if it's too hard to check on mobile because most customers are going to start out on mobile. It is what it is. The data shows, especially in today's day and age, most of your customers are going to start out by browsing on mobile, especially if they're being directed there through some type of display ad, or some, or they're finding you on social media.
Social ad. Yeah,
exactly. And so, with that being said, make sure that you have a really strong and easy, seamless mobile experience. And if for some reason you don't or you can't, think about having a really strong, what we would consider like a cross-device optimization technology in place or campaign where you can easily divert that customer, engage them on mobile, and then direct them to desktop so they can finish that checkout on desktop.
Another thing we touched on was these heat maps. And I think that's I think something all brands should be paying attention to and driving a hot jar, at least looking at it for a week. It's funny because you can sometimes get caught in like a black hole and just start watching recordings of people clicking around your site, and you're like, why do they go there? And like, but like, you have to think about the consumer. On the consumer side of things, we know where to go because we're the brand, right? What should people be looking at if they're running a heat map? What are something like, what's a good number of maybe recordings they should look at? What gives you some real data?
Well, obviously the big value of heat maps is being able to, essentially see, okay, well, we have, 300, 400, 500 different impressions of people that are clicking on, this specific image. Do we change, the layout? Is this below the fold right now? Do we maybe want to move it above the fold? And so just being able to take this information, and again, it's hard to say, well, at what point do we hit that, that statistical relevance or that level of, okay, now we have enough data to make an accurate decision. Because again, obviously it depends on how much traffic's coming in. But I think that, again, a lot of this is just common sense. If you're looking at your heat map and you see a big red space, right there, and it continues to get even deeper and darker, obviously we know that people are engaging with that specific image. And so just being able to understand, and, they make it super easy to understand what's going on. And then taking that information, then, again, like I mentioned, whether it's moving it above the fold, whether it's maybe, a reiteration at some point, where we see people are consistently, whether it's on homepage or a category page, engaging with this specific image, that might be a great opportunity later in the funnel. If it's another box, if it's an upsell opportunity, it could be a great opportunity to, whether it's through an interstitial, whether it's through an overlay, whether it's, done proactively or upon abandonment, to kind of reiterate that specific product and the value behind it.
One thing is data trumps everything, right? So like, we can all have our intuitions, but data trumps that. Everybody should be thinking about how they can upsell, whether that's through the checkout process or through an email. We should be looking at the customer pass on the website and see how that can translate to us making better decisions on the site. Is there anything else you wanted to add in or bring up, or any tip that you might give to a brand that can really help them with increasing LTV or upselling?
We love the subscription world because it offers so much value. It's essentially one of the best ways, if you have a great product, if you understand how to communicate with your audience, it's one of the best ways to increase and have a really strong lifetime value, because they're going to continue to come back over and over and over again. Then of course the idea of social proofing. Social proofing works incredibly well in the subscription industry. Showcasing success. Obviously reviews is a great way to do that. A lot of our brands, and a lot of brands in general, of course, take advantage of this, and they do it for a reason. It works very, very well.
Right.
But I think just understand your audience, understand how they're essentially engaging with your website, and then update. Continually make changes. Don't ever get complacent, because when we get complacent and feel like we're already doing well enough,
Right.
that's when obviously we start to get behind. And so and again, we could get caught in the, well, how much data is too much data. And again, when you have the right tools in place, there is no such thing as too much data, but you want to make sure that you're smart with it as well.
That's awesome. Josh, this was amazing. I appreciate all the insight. I appreciate your partnership to Subta. Looking forward to hopefully seeing you in November. But we got our virtual event in July, so I'm sure you'll be a part of that.
Absolutely.
Again, thank you for all your support, and I will talk to you soon.
Yeah, really appreciate it, Chris. I can't wait to get out and, get to spend some time with you and, all your partners in person. Can't wait for it.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much, Josh. Talk to you soon.
Thanks so much.